Welcome. I'm Danielle Sally.
And I'm Eva Fusa.
And you're listening to Ghost Boss, stories about the freelance afterlife.
Hey,
how are you, Eva?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Very good.
So we were talking about eventually doing an episode on positivity and feeling good. And because this industry and freelancing and being a woman, all that kind of stuff
tears you down.
It's hard, man. And so we could always use a little boost of confidence.
That's right.
Like what makes you feel confident. And so I'm not even going to say much after this. Danielle, how was your weekend?
It was the best weekend of my entire life.
Oh my gosh. Tell me more.
Okay. So I immediately, the day after the American Advertising Awards in Columbia.
We'll talk about that in a minute too.
We'll talk about that too. I had already planned out driving down to Atlanta to see my idol, Cody Rigsby, the Peloton goddess. I love him so much. Honestly, I started riding with Peloton back in 2018.
Yeah.
It really took off during the pandemic. Everyone was stuck at home. And that's when Peloton really hit its stride. And so the community just grew so much.
Are you trying to say you did it before it was cool?
I did it before it was cool. I was.
Did you make it cool?
Before Peloton went mainstream.
Yeah.
But I loved it because the community just grew and grew and grew. And it made this little pocket, this safe space on the internet for people to just really spread love and be positive. And for me, the Peloton community has taught Cody Rigsby in particular, has taught me self-love and how to be confident. Yay. And I'm getting real close to 40 and
it's great. It's fun. You'll be fun over here.
And again, I've said this before.
Did feel
age
weird,
is not a thing for me.
Yeah.
But it took me this long to finally feel what pure confidence feels like. Aww. And I still have days where,
we all do, babe.
Right? Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the imposter syndrome before, but I have to just spend this podcast sharing what my weekend was like, because this man, I put him on the highest of the pedestals. I love him so much. And I went down with my best friend, Tiffany. We were trying to have a whole girls weekend of it. And he was at City Winery in Atlanta, which is in the Ponce City Market.
Ponce City Market.
Yep.
I love Ponce City Market.
So we did a day. We went to the Georgia Aquarium, spent some time.
Do the Atlanta stuff. And
then we decided, let's just go back to Ponce City Market. We'll grab some lunch and then we'll grab a coffee afterwards. Yeah. We go to grab a coffee after. My friend Tiffany grabs my arm. There is Cody Rigsby himself sitting there. And in his book, I did finish his book. That was one of my 3 books on my list. I listened to it on the whole way down. And, in his book, he talks about how when he was on Dancing with the Stars, he saw Mel C from Spice Girls. Yeah. And he was like, I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to take a photo with him, with her.
I was like, did he ask her out? Wow.
I'm going to take a photo with her. And he talks about how he'll gladly always take photos with fans. And I was just like, you know what? He said it in the book. Take a photo. Yeah. So I went up to him. Hi. We told him while we were there. We were there for him. And he was very gracious, took the best selfie. He made sure we found our light. And we looked not our best. We were in our casual day clothes. And literally my friend Tiffany are like, hopefully he'll notice, because we have meet and greet passes. Hopefully he notices that we look much better later in the day. Sure enough, we go to the show. The show is fantastic. Yeah. We do the meet and greet. We go back again. I thank him for the photo. I was like, we're the girls from the coffee shop. Thank you. And he looks at us and he was like, talk about a glow up.
Oh, yay.
Oh my God. We're so glad you noticed. and then he said, we're the best dressed there. Girl, there were 300 very attractive women and men there. And I was just like, he called us best dressed. And he could have said that anything is fine.
Sure.
I post about him on Instagram.
Wait, can I interject here real quick?
Please.
So I'm working.
Yes.
I know Danielle's out of town. I don't know why she's out of town. I just know she's not here. Yes. Right? I don't know what you're doing. Yes. That's fine. I'm working. She sends me a picture and then a text, but I don't see the picture. iMessage just brings up the text.
Yes.
And it just says in all caps, I am not effing okay. I'm censoring for the podcast.
Of course.
Y'all, I thought something catastrophic had happened. And I immediately jumped to iMessage. I'm like, oh my God, what happened? So also then I see the picture. Yes. I know who this is, even though I don't Peloton, but I get it.
Because you're on TikTok.
I'm on TikTok. But then I don't know that you're there to see him. Yes. So I'm like, was she going to like an AF thing or a speaking engagement, and she happened to run into this person, and I don't know who the lady is with you.
Oh yeah.
And so now that you're telling me it, like I'm unraveling. Now it all makes sense, it's right? Like that movie Memento.
Yes.
I was working backwards, and things made more sense as we moved forward, but I had to go backwards.
I posted the photo, and Cody has over 1 million followers on Instagram. Yeah. I'm just little old me. I post this photo and I was just like, you know what? This was the best day ever. Yeah. And it's just like all this good energy just kept happening. The universe was working in my favor. I look at my phone. It said Cody Rigsby commented on my photo. He commented on my post.
Oh my gosh.
He doubled down and said, I went through the entire meet and greet line. You all were indeed best dressed. Oh, and it just, it really gets down to how I love him so much because he gets up there and he's not afraid to be his authentic self. Yep. And he makes you just feel good about everything. And I'm like, we need more Codys in the world. We need more people that just spread positivity. And I'm like, it's great that I found this person in my, like I know him, but I found something in my life that brought me so much confidence and how it translates to everything in my life, my personal life, my business life, everything. And so I just think it was just the best day ever. And I had to put that on the podcast, but what I will get into, but it's funny because I'm like feeling so great. And then so there were 2 hosts at the show, and they are the host of a podcast called Camp Counselors. Okay. It was Zachariah Porter and Jonathan Carson, and they were great hosts. I love them. So the next morning I run into them in the hotel lobby. And I was like, you guys were great last night. I loved it. Yeah. And I was like, I'm a podcast host too. Yeah. And then I had a moment because they were like, oh, that's great. I was like, we only have 13 episodes. We're just starting. And they're like, no, that's fantastic. Aww. And I was just like, you know what a nice thing to just say more positive stuff. But I had the imposter syndrome because I'm like, oh, what if they go and look up the account? We only have like 100-some followers right now.
But we're so early. I mean, I think it's great.
Launched nothing and completely organically, and I feel really good about it.
People stop me and tell me, like the fact that our friend Melissa tells us that she listens every Tuesday morning on her way to work means so much to me.
Yes, for sure.
So yeah, I mean, we have 100. We don't only have we have 100 followers.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So I don't know. It just left me being inspired, and I was just kind of like every time you have the chance to tell someone how proud you are of them and how great they're doing, like, do it. Like we'll get into the American Advertising Awards. Yeah. I've been a club president before. I've run the gala before. So I know the stress. So when I get to see someone else go through it, as particularly a friend of mine, like I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it. Because like I know what a big deal it is. Yeah. And so the first thing I did is text you. I'm like, I just need you to know I'm so proud of you because this is a big moment.
I got that text, but I was like, I didn't answer because
I didn't expect you to answer.
I was printing off a script and I was trying to find my shoes. Yes. And I was like getting ready, but I was like, she'll understand that I'll hug her later.
Exactly.
Yeah, that did mean a lot to me.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. But it went so well. And this whole thing is about finding your confidence within, because I feel like there's a lot of times I think people don't jump into freelance because it's a confidence thing,
or not even just freelance. I would say board service. Yes. Or, I've been doing like a lot of speaking. Yeah. Like not even like big picture speaking, but like speaking to students. And then like I'm on a panel soon. And I think people are afraid of that because of a confidence issue. Yes. And so I used to go to conferences and see people speak and I'd be like, I want to do that. Yeah. Well, now I do that.
Yeah. So like it's cool, right?
This woman 2 weeks ago was like, you should write a book. I'm like, should I write a book?
I know.
Right?
Maybe we should do a little Ghost Boss.
Maybe we're going to write a Ghost Boss book.
And then someone will start a podcast and we'll be on their recommended.
Oh my gosh. Look at us go.
Exactly. Yeah. It is true though with speaking engagements because I have social anxiety. I'm very open about that. Yeah. I have medication for it. Yeah. It has helped a lot. Otherwise, I never would have gone up to Cody Rigsby or those the Camp Counselor podcast. I like never would have went up to him before. Yeah. And I did because I'm medicated.
Hey girl, we're getting you there.
But I had people in my life that were like, you need to do speaking engagements because I think it will help you come out of your shell. And I did start doing it. And now it's not scary. No. And it's fun to get to do that.
I love it.
And also we're starting the Ghost Boss speaking tour. I'm going to call it that because it will become that. No. But we're going around. We are talking about Ghost Boss to a live audience, and I think it's a great marketing tool as well for business owners to get out there and start and hopefully inspire others to do this as well. I've had quite a few people that they're considering freelance and now they're reaching out to me just for advice because they're like, hey, you did what I've been wanting to do.
Yeah.
And I just have been too nervous or too scared to go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And I just want to hear your advice.
Yeah.
So I've decided I'm going to live like Cody Rigsby. I'm going to shoot my shot and I'm going to give out all of my advice.
Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect. I am weirdly extroverted.
Yes, you are.
I'm very extroverted, but being extroverted in like social settings is not the same as being able to like get up on a stage and talk in front of people.
Okay, fair.
They're very different things.
Yeah.
Part of it is because I feel like I had to make a transition between being good at like back and forth conversation to like just talking.
Sure.
And I'm not getting as many verbal cues or not verbal cues, but visual cues when people are tracking with me because people like get into like.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point.
And then I've been talking to a mix of like professionals, college students, and like middle school students or high school students. They all visually cue you very differently, wildly differently.
If they're even looking at you, I think you're doing great.
Right. So I will say I had to it was still a transition for me, even though I am very comfortable like talking to people. Yeah. But I will say doing the podcast has helped tremendously.
Right? Yeah.
Because part of what it is like I still get like social anxiety after the fact. I don't get anxious in the moment. I don't.
Do you overthink the whole conversation?
Yes. And I replay something I've said 50 times, and I hope they didn't think I was weird.
Right.
So even your resident extrovert feels that way.
Because after we met Cody, I was like, I kept saying to my friend, I was shaking after. And I was just like, oh man, do you think he thought it was weird? Like you just got off the plane? Like I was overthinking the whole thing. And then we met him the second time. I was just cool as a cucumbber that time.
And we're best friends. Of course,
now.
I
had like 2 glasses of champagne in me.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I definitely. And the problem too, and maybe this is the introvert side, I overthink it in the moment.
Oh no. I'm just going, which is, it's a blessing and a curse.
Yes. And then I'll be I overthink it in the moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, am I thinking too long? Should I be talking right now?
Oh, I'm the opposite. I'm like, am I talking too much?
Out.
Yeah. And I'm like, shh.
Yeah.
And because of that, I do feel like one of the things I still need to work on speaking wise is I go too fast.
Yeah.
Because I don't have anything to help me break the way I do. I also naturally talk fast.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything like this to pace me and break me.
Yeah. I do think the podcast has been a good help for how I speak. I don't even want to call it out because then our listeners will notice. Oh. Well, I edit it out anyway, but I take a lot of long pauses.
So you told me this one day, you edit out your long pauses. What do you edit out?
I
something
edit out your
I a lot, which I hate to, but I've gotten better about it.
Take a breath and then you to the point that I can see it in the sound waves.
Yeah.
Like there's an coming up.
Yeah. And I try for years, I've tried really hard not to kneecap my language. Yeah. I think part of it is being a millennial woman. Like I said, so much constantly as a teenager.
Yes.
And then I think subconsciously
turned into
It turned into And I think subconsciously women in business, we kneecap our language a lot and apologize for things and phrase things as a question when we really shouldn't.
That's a great point.
I could do a whole second episode about how I specifically try to not do that.
Right.
So I'm working on both of those things.
Yes.
And I've managed to not kneecap all over the place.
Right.
I just a lot, but I less than I used to.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the whole, we kind of rephrase things as questions, right? But we also over apologize. And I think that's a good thing to talk about in an episode about confidence and self-love, because I'm guilty of it too. Yeah. I will question myself a lot. And I had a friend reached out to me for potentially some business work. Sure. And I told her, and because it was a friend, I was like, if the pricing, if we need to work on it. I did that to a friend last week. Yeah. And I normally try not to do that. I make a point to be pretty friends. I know.
It's very different with friends.
It's different with friends.
I would let it go with a friend.
But what I love is that she reached out to me later and she's like, I just want to say it's been rubbing me the wrong way. Don't negotiate your prices. Aww. And she's like, I want nothing about your prices scared me out of the water. Yeah. They see, I thought they were fine. That's an issue. I think they're what I expected. Okay. And she's like, but do not do that. And then she said, no man is going to do that. Oh. So and I appreciated it. I was like, you know what? We need more women like that in our lives.
Helping other
female business owners that are like, hey, I caught you negotiating your prices. Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah. And don't apologize later for anything. Yeah. And I've really tried to make sure since starting my company that I'm not trying to negotiate too much. I kind of gone down this avenue, if the pricing's wrong, it's not the right fit.
So that actually brings up an interesting situation that happened to me yesterday. Yeah. So with the friend in particular, I didn't really alter the price, but I altered the structure. Sure. So normally, she's just starting a business. So normally I require a deposit and then all this stuff. But I was like, look, you're just getting started and I know you, it's fine. Yeah. So if we need to do a payment plan, that's what I altered, not the price, but the payment structure. But this happened to me yesterday. I got a call or an email from a woman who needed some design help. Right. Yeah. And so I was referred to her by somebody in an agency. Sure. Outstanding. So she said, do you have a pricing, a price sheet? I do not have a price sheet.
I don't either.
I told students this last week, or maybe it was earlier this week. I don't have a price sheet because my prices fluctuate depending on a lot of things. I have a range. Right. But I don't want anybody to look at the range and not know where they fall. Right. It depends on the scope. It depends on the type of work.
There's a lot of different factors.
Of stuff that goes into it. But I have a range. But anyways, so she was like, do you have a price sheet? I was like, I do not. Why don't we set up a call and you tell me what you need and then we'll figure it out. So then she replied back and was like, I want to be transparent with you. I have this budget. Yes. I want to do a retainer for the rest of the year with this many hours per month. Sure. If this is too low for you, because you're established, please just let me know that. That's fine.
I love that.
I appreciate it. So I replied back. I did the math. It is lower than my retainer rate typically is. Not crazy low, but lower. And so I replied back and I said, I would still like to meet with you for a couple of different reasons. Yes. Number one, your estimate of how many hours this work will take me may be high. Right. I might be able to do it in 2/3 of those hours. Exactly. Now the rate is back to where I'm supposed to be. Right. Two, maybe you only use me for some stuff and you keep some stuff and maybe we can work it out that way. Or number three, maybe this isn't a fit, but if you explain to me more of what you need, I know lots of people that their rates are lower either because they're more junior or because this is a side, my rates were lower when this was just a side hustle versus I'm trying to make a living off of this.
Exactly. This is different for us.
Right. Yep. And so I really appreciated her talking money up front. But she was like, oh my gosh, that's great. So we're meeting on Monday to explore the scope. I don't believe in telling people no from the jump, but that is a way of well, let's see what you got going on. Yes. And I may take her on anyways if it's a little bit lower. Right. She was like, I hope guaranteed retainer work might be different than an hourly rate. And I was like, it is.
It is different.
It is. So sure. We'll see. I'll give you an update next week.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. It is true though. I do think you are able to work with someone's budget and sometimes it just depends on how much else you have going on. Right. Yeah. If I have a ton of projects going on, it might be more likely that I need to say no. And maybe not take more on. Yeah. But if it's a slower month, and I have some room for it, then sure, definitely.
It also, for me, depends the type of work because if it is stuff that I'm already doing, right? I already do a lot of newsletter and social media B2B work. Yeah. It's very much some bread and butter for me. She did not go into a ton of detail about what the full scope is. She did mention some social media management. If it ends up very similar to a lot of the work that I'm already doing, it is much less of a lift for me.
Yes.
Agreed. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Like now if she's talking, I don't know, let's say video production. I do very light video production, but not a ton of it.
Right.
So I'm not as efficient at it as other stuff. That makes a difference too. But I suspect it's going to be a lot of stuff I'm already doing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, I need to retool this social media like plan for a different industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, half my research is already done.
Yep.
As far as like cadence and pacing and stuff like that.
Because you know this, because you've done it before.
I do it a lot.
That's right.
I do it a lot. So I mentioned that I've been doing a lot of speaking lately.
Yes.
So I did a career day for middle schoolers.
I love it.
It was fun. It was fun. They're just a different crowd. Yep. But there were some really engaged kids in there, which was great. But I've met with USC twice in the last week and spoken to their juniors and seniors in the design program.
Right.
And it's been really cool. First off, like I don't know if all groups are like this, but they have a very special group over there right now. Yeah. Like these kids, I'm not going to even call them kids because they are very much a drinking age.
I want to put this on the podcast.
Yeah.
I make a point. It was because I was an orientation assistant in college.
Yeah.
I make a point, anyone 18 and older, I will never refer to you as a kid. And it's because since I was orientation assistant, I had to work with a lot of parents. They were coming to the college.
Yeah.
And a lot of parents said, like, we actually appreciate that you refer to them as students and not kids because they're about to leave the nest.
They're adults.
They are adults.
Yeah.
And so I usually have a cringe moment when I like, especially through professional events when like these students are killing it in the industry early on and they get called kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, way to insult them right out of the get-go.
I mean, for me, this is just a very much me perspective. I don't consider it an insult, but I naturally
think it's a respect thing.
But I naturally, as a person, use language that scales young.
Sure.
So I find myself calling women girls. I find myself calling men boys or guys. Yeah. I find myself calling lots of people kids.
Yeah.
I called myself part of kids for a long time. Like, so for me, it is not like a age pecking order thing.
For me though, if I'm calling a man a boy, I am flat out trying to insult you.
No, I realized
because you're acting like a man child.
Right. I realized the other night I was texting about somebody on the board and I was texting to another friend about it. And I said, this girl, and I was like, back it up. It's a woman. Cause she's in her 30s. But for me, I just have this, it's a pattern that I'm trying to break that just came from more casual language when I was younger.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're listening to this podcast and I spoke to you in the last week at the art school and I called you a kid, I don't even think I said it.
Yes.
It's not, I don't mean it. I'm coming back.
I know you're an adult.
I know you're a grown up. But all these students, they have a really great group of students right now. And when I graduated, I had a lot of really wonderful professors that really taught me a lot, both in the art school and the J school. But I did not have anybody out working in the real world.
Right.
As like, not even a mentor, but like somebody I could just have coffee with or email.
Yeah.
So I've done a couple speaking engagements recently. And at the end, I handed out my business card to everybody. And I was like, I 1,000% mean it. Like, reach out to me, find me on LinkedIn, follow my Instagram. I will follow you back. One of them has already like reached out and said like, can we get coffee this week? So we're going on Friday. I talked to several of them at the, gala over the weekend. And one of them, I was like, I 1,000% mean. He's like, oh no, I'm going to take you up on it. Like,
I love that.
So I hope that, and I did a presentation where I showed them like, this is the cool work I do. Here's an unsexy chart that I did for a trial.
I do it all.
I showed them this PDF I had to edit.
I love it.
This technical guide that's going to be in a bunch of Home Depots. But I was like, these are things that I didn't know about when I was graduating, that I would do cool stuff. And then I'm going to do a lot of stuff like this. And I'm 25 years as a designer, but 22 as 18 as a professional.
Yeah.
And I still do stuff like this. Right.
I think it's so important because I was kind of in the same boat as you. When I graduated SCAD, like I knew other people my age.
Yes.
That were going into the field.
Sure. You had peers doing it, but you didn't have anybody further along.
We were all scattered after we left SCAD, right? We all
scattered. Did you do that on purpose?
I didn't.
It was great.
I love it. Scattered bees. We were bees.
No, I know.
I was like, by the way.
No, by the way.
But I decided to move to South Carolina. I enjoyed living in Savannah, but I didn't want to stay in a tourist city. And so I was looking elsewhere. My sister had moved to Greenville, South Carolina. Original plan was to look into Greenville. We graduated in a not great time. There's this little thing, the recession happened for not very long after I graduated.
Right.
Like a year or two. And I was fortunate to find a job, and I found a job in Columbia. Yeah. I didn't know a single person living here. Yeah. I didn't know anything about the city when I moved here. Yeah. All I know is I went there for an interview. The vibe of the city felt right. Yeah. And I took a chance. Yeah. And I moved here. And again, same situation as you. Yeah. Didn't have anyone else to talk. Everyone else I know is an engineer or a teacher, right? Or some other art degree that just graduated when I did. So I didn't have any mentors.
Yeah. I didn't have anybody more than a year or two older than me or a year or two younger than me or my age. Exactly.
And that's why I know we talk about AAF all the time, but that's why
I talk to them a lot about AAF. Yes. You go ahead, but I talk to them heavily about that.
So I think I was 2 years into my career when I decided to get involved with AAF, and I joined the gala committee, and we met once a week at a local bar, and it's like a bunch of people I didn't know at the time. Now I've grown to be great friends with them. Yeah. And they were industry professionals that had been doing it for 10 plus years at that point. Yeah. And I really look back at that, and I think, they really helped show me the way, and they gave me such great advice that I want to do that for others as well. Yeah. And we had a listener of the podcast reach out, and she's just getting started. Yeah. And she was like, any chance you would meet with me? And I was like, of course. Sure. If there's any chance I have to just give advice and just kind of help people steer them in the right direction. Yeah. And I told her, I'm not the type that, I'm not going to make, we probably won't do monthly calls, things like that, regular check-ins. But I was like, but anytime you need to check in or just want a gut check, reach out to us. Yeah, definitely for that.
For sure. So one of the things that I told the students is that I didn't start doing board service until I was in my 30s. Yeah. Because I just didn't understand the significance of it. Right. Because the industries that my parents were in are just very different. So different. I mean, my dad was an engineer. Yep. You don't have to go network the way I do when you're an engineer. It's wildly different. So one of the things that I really, and I talked about AAF, but I also talked about AIGA. And then I also talked about, AMA and PRSA and IABC. And
all the acronyms.
And I was like, those last three, you will find people that will maybe hire you for work, but you're not going to find your people specifically. Yes. You're going to find, I'm doing like I was doing at the board. You're going to find your
all
people
over here
at AAF or AIGA. And one of the things I told them is I said, look, when you're looking at cities, now we're very active with AAF in Columbia. That's not always the case in other cities.
No, it depends on the city you go to.
It does. And it depends on leadership in those cities and whatnot. But I was like, but if you can't find anybody active, I would want to know why. If you can't find an active AAF chapter, but there's an active AIGA chapter, cool. But anyways, I was like, I would look at things like that because those people, for me, those are my clients. Yep. But AAF is also great if you don't want to freelance or you're not ready to freelance. Yeah. A lot of the students said, I eventually want to freelance. And one of them actually said, she was like, I don't know that I ever want to do it because I kind of just want to go work somewhere structured. That was my feeling when I was coming out of school.
That was exactly my feeling out of school.
Right. I thought it would be cool one day, maybe, but it was never a long-term goal.
For me, it was always, again, too, I mean, the recession was very early in the career. So for me, freelance was kind of the fallback plan. Yeah. And I never, 20-something-year-old Danielle would have never thought that she would be a business owner and wanting to do freelance full time.
30-year-old Eva wouldn't have, and that was that as long ago. 30-year-old Eva would not have believed that you could sustain this in this market.
No, absolutely.
And I don't just mean Columbia as a market, but so I hope that I helped some of them. I think I did.
Well, I think it's huge too. I think a lot of students don't realize, hey, you can just reach out to these professionals. Yeah. Worst that happens is they don't respond to you.
I'll respond to you. I may not have time to talk to you right now.
Yeah, but eventually.
Yeah, but she happened, like this student I'm meeting with this week, she happened to have time at the end of this week.
Yeah.
But I am better on text than sometimes it's harder for me to like go and meet up with somebody. But, but yeah, I am happy to do that. So I hope I did want to teach for a long time. I thought I was going to tenure track teach at a university was a goal for a very long time. And for several reasons, it just ended up like not my path.
Right.
And I'm very happy where I am. So like if this is what my path ends up more like, I'm an active practitioner.
Yes.
And I'm popping in once or twice a semester and making contact and, talking to some of these students at the American Advertising Awards and just a touch point along the way. Like,
for sure.
That's just as good.
Yeah.
It's great. I think it's great.
And I think it's great. And I mean, honestly, this whole episode's about confidence, but that's really what it does come down to. I think when we get this chance to talk to these students, it's about giving them a confidence boost too. I mean, some of them their egos they're fine, but there's some that just need a little bit of a boost and let them know, like, you can survive this industry. You got to have a little bit of a tough skin, but you've got it. You can do this.
I was a little stressed out because I'd prepped my deck to show them last week.
Yeah.
And then the gala happened and I saw their work and I told their professor on the way out, I was like, I might have to update some of my slides because I can't be having them see some of this stuff. And I was joking, but I also, I remember feeling very, first off, I didn't know what an Addy was when I was in college.
Right.
I just didn't know what one was, but I do remember feeling very intimidated looking at other professionals' work because they tend to only show you the best, the brightest, the coolest, the shiniest. And that's why I made a point to like show them some things like, this is also what I do. I showed them an in-progress project.
Yes.
And so I think that that's also important.
That's actually a great point because too, I hear this all the time. Social media is just the highlight reel. Yeah. Right. Like, and truthfully too, I mean, a lot of stuff I post on.
Why wouldn't it be?
Right.
I mean, we can unpack that at a much larger scale later.
On my professional account and my personal account. Yeah, it is a highlight reel. Yeah. It's just showing you the best stuff, but it is nice in a presentation, especially to students to be like, it's not always
this. And I think it really, for me, touched on imposter syndrome on both sides of the coin, right?
Yeah.
So some of those students sitting in that room, I was that student and I had mad imposter syndrome when I graduated. And so I hope some of them like walked away seeing like she's a real person and she does real work.
Yes.
And she does like high level work, but she also does like in between work. It's not bad. The ask was just totally different.
Exactly.
But it also like solves some of my imposter syndrome. I don't really have a lot of that anymore, but I have a little bit of it.
Sure. It comes around.
I mean, prepping that deck for middle schoolers, I was like, they're going to be impressed with literally anything I put up there. But when I was prepping it for like design students and I knew some of them had won a student Addy, I was like, I really need to make sure that like this is polished and put together. They're going to notice things that other people are going to notice. So for me, it's also very validating that like I'm a capital G graphic designer. I'm a capital F freelancer.
Yes.
And then like, I mean, I was very transparent with them. I would not do this with everybody, but they're trying to enter the workforce. I was very transparent with them about pricing, about how much I charge, what I make, what I made to begin with, how that's different now and all that kind of stuff. Because I do also feel like professionals don't want to talk about money. And I mean, I pulled up my like FreshBooks account. I was like, you can look, it's
professionals
fine.
Of a certain generation.
Yeah.
Like, it's funny. I've seen a lot of videos on social media, how like different generations have the salary talk.
Yeah.
And like, I think millennials were in this group of like, we want to be transparent, but not like you say yours first and then I'll share you mine.
Yeah.
There's still that hesitation. And Gen Z's all in here like, I'm making blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just so much more open and transparent about it. And truthfully, like it does benefit.
It benefits everybody
to kind of know what everyone else is making. That's the only way to make sure it's fair across the board.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think if you'd asked me as a student, what do I think a full-time freelancer looks like? Where do I think they live? How much money do I think they make?
Right.
What kind of projects do I think they're working on? I don't think I would have envisioned anything that actually looks like me.
Right.
And that's not like an insult to who I am. I had this idea in my mind that everybody looked like they had this fancy high rise in Manhattan, and you're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. They all had like cool glasses and like lived in this like whole place that it was all white except for these like cool prints on the wall. And they were so artsy with how they worked. And they only did like high level, like highbrow design. Like that's what I thought I was supposed to become.
Yes.
And the reality is most of us are just me and you.
Yeah.
And I was transparent about like, I'm on boards. I have a child. Like this is how I balance my life. And they were like, I was like, I work a lot. And I told the story about I didn't win for the brochure, but the brochure took my son to the beach.
Exactly.
So many people do jobs just because they have to.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do something to pay the bills. They compromise along the way. And that's not the case when you're a creative.
Right. You
want to be here.
Yes.
You have to fight to be here. I do feel a little bit like you're chosen to be here in a way too, because I feel like creativity is a skill set you can build upon, but you cannot build it from scratch. Like it has to naturally be there.
Yes.
So the fact that like I get up every day and do something I love.
Yeah.
And I do it for myself and I pay my bills and I take care of my child and, buy dog food and do all that stuff.
When that invoice gets paid,
that's great.
That confidence level goes up.
I'm doing awesome. So I really hope, I gave them like a good picture of like what life looks like. I think
that you were their Cody Rigsby.
Well, I have a feeling, I don't know this, but I have a feeling you've got something to end this with better than what I can say.
Yes. In the words of Cody Rigsby.
There we go.
And it's fitting because we're all ghost boss here.
We are.
Bye, boo. I didn't do it. I didn't do it justice.
Oh, you did great. You did
all right.
Great.
We'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.
Bye.
Bye. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Ghost Boss Podcast. And also please like and review us on your favorite podcast app.